Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss another in a long line of COVID corruption cases. This time it's the government appointing as head of the vaccine task force someone who was given the job without any selection process, has significant conflicts of interest, and seemed to also deliberately set out to hide those conflicts, is married to a Conservative MP and doesn't seem to have any experience for the job. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So the level of corruption, at the very least reckless disregard from the part of the Conservatives in terms of our COVID response, has reached yet another level. This time I keep wondering, is there going to come a point where it's too much even for them? You expect, unfortunately, for governments who are inherently political, of course, to make appointments that are in tune with their thinking. It's what you naturally do. You don't want to appoint someone to a position that is someone who is politically on a different page to you. The problem is that that will mean that that's not always going to be the best appointment, and why it's a strength to have a lot of important roles in many institutions, such as those of the judiciary and large parts of the civil service, generally not having the involvement of politicians of either side, something that, of course, Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings wish to change. But where appointments are political, you at least expect the people given those roles to be, you do expect them to be politically harmonious, if not completely compliant. But then there's another level where the appointments are a case of jobs for the boys. You know, the greater problem here is that it's not just that you're cutting down on a potential field of recruits that might be more competent. It's that the appointment is not seen as a responsibility, but as a reward. You know, after all, even if you appoint based on political points of view, you still expect them to do their job well. If they don't, you replace them with someone who will. You know, because when you appoint as a reward, not a responsibility, then you are implicitly stating that there isn't a level of competence required. You know, that the job is not a responsibility. There's no importance attached to it. It's a reward. Thanks very much. It's a thanks for past services or hoped for future services at times. And so it was with Dido Harding, for example, who had past failure as a CEO, given the task of running our absolutely crucial test and trace system, because she is a Conservative, and then she promptly ran it into the ground. The system is a complete shambles. Most of the vast sums of money are still unaccounted for, and it's one of the major reasons why we were in no position to suppress the incoming second wave that we had plenty of warning about, but the government would deny would even happen, even just a few days before they had to say, oh yeah, it's actually here, by the way. You know, but were she just appointed because she's politically sensitive to the government's aims and policies, then she still would have been fired and replaced by someone more competent, you know, who still shared those aims and policies, because there's plenty about. There are plenty of competent people out there who would still be in tune with Conservative thinking, but no, it was never about getting a job done, and therefore there was no assessment of competence or target hitting. That was never part of the equation. This is why she's even been promoted. She's going to be running all healthcare matters in England now, not just the small but crucial part that she's already failed badly in. That's good news. And then the Times, which is a Conservative supporting newspaper. One feature of 2020 that has been absolutely amazing is the number of Conservative supporting papers that are actually digging around and exposing Conservative corruption. So they ran an article on the head of the government's vaccine task force. Now, like test and trace, this is going to be another crucial line of defence for our population when a suitable vaccine becomes available, and there's an awful lot of positive news around that. So Kate Bingham was appointed to this role some time ago, months ago now, and admitted at the time that she was not a vaccine expert. What? I mean, that's even worse than appointing someone useless to test and trace, because after all, test and trace, the concept's quite new. Naturally, there are public health experts who would have had relevant skills and experience, But this wasn't a role where it was well established in the UK by anyone. Vaccinations are different. We've run vaccination programs for generations. There are absolutely experts that the government could have appointed and yet chose not to, not even consider them. They went for someone with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever. She was appointed without a selection process. People weren't invited to submit applications and go through rounds of interviews, as far as I can tell. She was just appointed. But worse than Harding, Bingham has active conflicts of interest for such a role. 2 months after her appointment, according to the report in the Times, she promoted investments for financial gain. She charged for them in the US. Now, this isn't speculative financial advice. This isn't, oh, this company is doing really well. I think they've got the best treatment here and the UK government are probably going to go with them. No. She has the authority to decide which companies the government vaccine contracts go to. She tried to claim that the firm that she manages doesn't invest in companies related to work on COVID-19 vaccine, but it's a bit misleading, that one. The Times found it's not, what you're trying to say there is a little bit misleading, because she invests directly in 2 firms, Alcamab and Adimab, who develop antibody treatments. Now, these aren't vaccines as such, but they will be run alongside the vaccines. She decides which of these antibody treatments will be used by the government. And it is proposed that these be used alongside inoculations. The idea is to boost the immune systems of vulnerable people, who of course need to be the first to get the vaccines. Now, the word claim, she tried to claim that she had resigned from the aspects of her business that are directly involved in those firms on taking her new role. But again, the Times suggests that she was directly involved in the investment firm 2 months into her role as the head of the vaccine task force. Now, there's also, you bring into this, the benefit of doubt arguments. So let's say, someone has taken a position. This can happen in government. You know, sometimes, because governments will want to appoint experts in a field. That expert may have vested interests. So they recluse themselves from it. They remove themselves from those vested interests. So let's say we try and accept that she genuinely stood away from her role in a company that she is managing director of still, that is involved in investing in companies who develop COVID treatments. That, in theory, could happen and that would be fair enough. But here's the thing again. Why was she appointed? Comes down to that. Why was she appointed? Because she's not an expert. She has, by her own admission, no prior expertise in the role she accepted. Anything she understands about this role, she has learnt since taking it on. So why was she chosen? There's no way the government just grabbed someone randomly from the partners of Tory MPs, the wives and husbands of Tory MPs. Oh, your turn, come here. I don't believe that. You know, who just so happen to have a vested interest in who gets the contracts for COVID treatments. No way a reasonable person would accept such a coincidence. Now, from the reports in the Times, it seems clear that whatever role Bingham claims in her own company, she will benefit financially if certain companies are chosen by her to be used for the UK vaccination programme. Whatever she claims as her direct oversight or not, she's got shares in the aforementioned companies, and if they are chosen, she will benefit. And what does that mean for us? It's another example of corruption at the top of government. And that is reason enough to oppose it, of course, but on a more practical level, it also represents the same problem we've had with the opaque awarding of contracts throughout the COVID pandemic, whether it be for PPE, test and trace, or the upcoming vaccination programme. If you don't appoint for competence, you won't get it. Sometimes you do appoint for competence and still don't get it. You make a genuine mistake. But, you know, you're at least of the right mind to then change things when it's not working. If it turns out that that's not the case, okay, you've tried, thanks very much, we need to get someone else in. With PPE contracts, we know that vast sums of money have been completely wasted. And I don't mean because it's gone through intermediaries that we probably didn't need, but literally wasted because we didn't always get the equipment that was ordered. Quite a lot of the times we didn't. Sometimes we took delivery of boxes that did not contain what we ordered. Sometimes this didn't come to light immediately, sometimes not for a long time afterwards. With test and trace, we got a shambles of a system where people were told to drive hundreds of miles for a test, where details were lost, so that, okay, tests were taken, results analysed, but no one to give the results to because, you lost the details. We've had people waiting over a week for results. We're supposed to be waiting 24 hours. Currently, fewer than one person in 4 gets their results back on time. We are contacting hardly anyone on the tracing programme. Virtually nobody proportionally is actually being contacted. We've got very low isolation, about 20% I think is the best figure recently for the number of people who should be isolated, who are isolated. The whole thing is a complete mess. Are we really going to believe that the vaccination programme, which is being run by the government, this is not a knock on necessarily the people who are being directed by the government to run it, but the government's decision making, the way they're running it, the vaccination programme has been running the same way as COVID equipment procurement and test and trace. Are we seriously supposed to believe that this is going to be the one part of the COVID response that actually runs smoothly? Yeah, the rest of it was a complete shambles, but this thing will still work, even though we've not appointed anyone with expertise. We have a head who has no experience. Treatments potentially being chosen, I say potentially, we don't know, but it seems a bit coincidental, potentially being chosen because of the financial returns they give and not what represents the best consideration for the public. I'd have no confidence that it's going to work well at all. And we're going to be dependent upon this in 2021. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.